greatest in Ohio. It's all about Ohio. Squeeze two betas together and really all you'll have is Alpha, Sigma. Grimace will shake your ass to have the juice. Risen around in an all-black goon. Couple of skibbities ready to shoot. Shit, etching and mogging and gooning and joking with 69 ounces of skibbity gouts. Fucking around with a low taper fade that will turn you to Phantom and hope you be taxed. Aiden Ross overload, Kyson out overdose. Danny Cascade put the fries in the bag. John Porker goaded, bitch it's a rap. Tear my witness, I pray to look smacks. Young and restless, me streak in the past. Key in ignition, edge on the gas. None of you Sigmas is acting that jab. Mr. Beast got the gat and a black shitty mask. Ray gun, goofy turn you into beta cules. Planet goons, I'll take you to Ohio soon.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome to Discourse Dudes.
Yeah.
I'm Trevor.
I'm Dylan.
And we're your Discourse Dudes. I don't want to presume too much to say that we are the Discourse Dudes, but for the next hour or so, we will be your Discourse Dudes.
Or half hour on 2 times speed, of course.
Dylan, thank you so much for joining me on this creative project that we're embarking in.
In total sincerity, I am honored to have been asked because I think that the year-long project that you've been doing that is at the foundation of this show is an incredible undertaking with brilliant execution. And I feel almost a little bit intimidated to be involved in some way.
That means a lot coming from you, I will say. And yeah, it is a bit of an intimidating project because like you said, like you implied, it's kind of taken a whole year to put together the raw materials for the show. And for the longest time, I wasn't even sure what I wanted to do with those materials. You know, I was just gathering them as I'm wont to do, you know?
I thought the clear thing to do with them would be hard drive shot into space, right?
That would have been good. I think the second best option after that would have been to kind of figure out a way to use them to write some kind of "We Didn't Start the Fire"-esque song, which, as far as I'm concerned, is still on the table, considering we're not backing out of anything because we're doing this. You're an excellent song parodist, so that may still come. But let's talk about like what the actual project is. What I've been doing for the past year, Dylan, is I've been keeping a list, right? Now, I don't know if you would describe yourself this way, but I would say that I, at least, am a pretty online guy, right? I spend a lot of time scrolling through feeds.
I feel like I struggle a little bit to like openly admit that about myself, but yes, I am online. I'm fairly online.
I've reached a point of comfort with it. And my form of being online, my go-to way that I engage with social media, and I feel like this is becoming increasingly rare now that you got your Instagrams, you got your TikToks, just, that kind of more mainstream, popular way of engaging with social media. I'm still a little old school. I am on Twitter, or, as the kids call it, X.
Or is it politicized to call it X? Are you drawing a line in the sand if you call it X? I don't really know the status of that.
I don't know. It is a little controversial. So I think for the duration of this program, we're going to be using the classic nomenclature Twitter. So when we say Twitter, we mean the social media site known as X.
And I also think that it's good to do this on Twitter because I think universally people have come to agree that Twitter represents like the lowest lows and some of the highs of the internet experience. And, we're not trying to whitewash what this year was. We want to look at it for what it really was.
Sure. And, one thing I think Twitter has over the other forms of social media is that it really does give you that kind of town square kind of vibe. Twitter is where people go to talk about things, right? That's where they go to have discourse, famously.
Surely you could post a TikTok about the same topic, but are people even checking the comments of that TikTok? Who knows?
Good question. They're just watching the dance or whatever, right? The Charlie XCX Apple dance that you've set whatever message you're trying to convey to.
Dancing about how your kid has RSV and is in the emergency room or whatever.
Dancing for Palestine. I don't know what they're doing on that site in this year. But what I've been doing is I have been keeping track of I don't know if I want to say I will say almost every round of discourse that I have felt I've seen encompass the majority of Twitter.
Right. It has to reach that bubbling point where it's not just fans of Ariana Grande who are talking about this Ariana Grande thing, but there is like notable, all the sources are chit-chatting about this thing for a few minutes.
It can't just be film Twitter arguing about what they think the message of the substance is. It needs to escape its like, bubble of origin into the greater Twitter sphere at large, which, things regularly do.
It has to be not very demure. It has to be loud and proud.
Oh, that's a great reference. You're so smart. So timely, so tapped in. That's why it's great to have you here. Because let's talk about what this show is going to be, right? I have a list of probably around like 25 to maybe like 35 or 40 topics of discourse for every month of 2024 that we've gone through so far. And
that's right. You started it in January, right? It was like a New Year thing.
That's right, yeah. Because this is something that I've always kind of had an idea to do in the back of my head. Like, man, I bet it would be, I don't know, I don't want to say like productive, but kind of weirdly funny if you like lined up all the dumb shit everybody on Twitter talked about. And like, right. I bet you could see it getting dumber as time goes on. And I think there are examples where we'll get to see that, but just not to get too ahead. So what we're going to do is we are going to go through all of these topics of discourse, and we're just going to kind of like, take a stroll down memory lane, look back at them, review them. But here's the thing we're actually going to do on the show, why it's useful to have you here. Just the first thing is I don't consider myself to be much of a comedian, really much of an entertainer at all. You can't give me like these topics and expect me to like do a tight 2 or 3 little comedy routine about them. I think that's something you are extremely capable of, and you can feel free to do that, at your leisure. But that's not really the point of this show. We're gonna be looking at these things on a bit more of like a basic level, kind of a primal level, almost the most basic level you can judge things, I would say, using a scale that was kind of introduced to the culture just this year, interestingly enough. I thought that would be appropriate. I am talking, of course, about the scale as made famous by those two, maybe 3, you want to say, guys that we've come to know and love over the course of the past year. The Costco guys. I'm talking about the boom or doom scale.
Yeah, it really has gotten some traction, hasn't it?
It has. Let's give we'll talk about these guys because they're going to pop up on the actual list, but let's just give a bit of a brief background before we get into it, because this is going to be so integral to how this show works. The Costco guys are a father-son duo from, do you know where they're from? Are they from New Jersey? I'm from New Jersey.
No, they sound like it, but they live in Florida.
They're in Florida. Man, I hope they were okay in the hurricane. Have we heard from them?
I think they're definitely Italian-American now.
They've got to be.
Eyebrows.
Yeah, so there's a father-son. There's AJ and Big Justice. Now, AJ is the father? Is that right?
That's right. It's counterintuitive.
Yeah, okay. So AJ's the father. Big Justice is the son. And these two Italian-American citizens, let's call them,
sure,
go to Costco, they sample the items, and they rate them on a scale that goes from boom to doom. Just 2 options. They keep it simple. Pass, fail. They've passed judgments so far on such things as the famous chicken bake. The double chunk chocolate cookie is a big one.
The double chunk chocolate cookie.
Yeah. So we're going to be using that scale to, I guess, kind of pass judgment on whether, I don't even want to say whether we thought this was good discourse or bad discourse. I think it's just going to be kind of like a feel thing when we come up to it,
Yeah, I almost think it's like, was this worth having devoted our time and memory to?
That's a dangerous question to ask, because like I feel like the bar for is it worth it is like pretty high when it comes to stuff that we talk about on Twitter,
Good point, yeah. All of this stuff is ephemera. All of this stuff is detritus, detritus.
Exactly.
To say it correctly.
And as a result, I don't exactly know how entertaining this is even going to be to listen to.
Who knows?
There's still a lot of stuff to figure out about this show, but I think the only way we're going to figure it out is if we just dive right in, we begin, and we start talking about Twitter discourse from January 2024.
Oh boy. I don't remember anything specific about this month. I'm really bad at like delineating specific periods of time in my own personal memory.
Sure, and Twitter discourse topics, I think, are like specially designed to make you respond. Like when you hear them with like, "Geez, that was this year," and I
Yeah,
think
sure.
like we're gonna get a couple of those at least on the show. But let's start. Let's go in. I have the list. You're kind of going in blind. I thought that would be a fun way to do it.
Yeah, I get the element of surprise.
Yeah, we're starting with a big one though. This is one that would later kind of probably warrant something that I started doing in the list, which was add a little like recurring bracket to topics that just like it seemed like people couldn't stop talking about them, or they just kept
sure.
popping up in some form or another. I will also say that I think I got better at keeping this list as we go on, particularly when it comes to phrasing the topics that made it. So maybe these early entries are going to be a bit like a little more vague than what comes in subsequent ones, but you know.
it'll work out because you'll get better at hearing the list alongside Trevor getting better at writing the list. So
That's true. And even hearing what we're going to say today, you'll probably get a good idea. But let's start. The first one is a big one because, like I said, people talked about this a lot this year on Twitter.
Is this vaguely chronological, by the way?
It is. I tried, to keep it chronological as best I could.
Okay.
Maybe there is like one or two instances of like something coming before something else that probably happened afterwards, but mainly chronological.
Okay.
I tried to keep it in real time. Like if I saw somebody talking about something for like maybe like 2 days in a row, I'd go like, "Oh, that's getting on the list."
Great. Well, then we're jumping back to the new year, the beginning of this crazy year.
Yes, let's do it. First topic of discourse for January 2024, DoorDash etiquette. Now, this one was huge. Do you remember people talking about this back in January?
I remember people talking about this intermittently, I feel like, all year.
Right.
Yeah,
Very controversial topic. Are you a good person or a bad person for using DoorDash? Should you expect the person who's delivering your like $40 or $50 burrito to get out of their car and bring it to your door? Like, what constitutes good DoorDash etiquette? What's an appropriate time to get something DoorDashed versus when are like, you basically just using a little personal surf to get you some McDonald's?
I use DoorDash more than I should. And I feel like for me, the etiquette begins and ends with, I won't report your ass if you forgot a thing, and I tip well. I don't go above and beyond that. I set it to drop at my door. I don't want to look at it.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if this segment should be about our personal DoorDash usage, but one thing that I always find very amusing when it comes to people complaining about DoorDashers and Uber Eats employees and stuff online is that if they don't get their food, they will immediately assume that the DoorDasher stole it.
I don't do that.
They'll be like, "Oh, they stole my food, man." I don't think anybody who is doing this job that pays like $7 an hour probably or something is risking this position for your cold Big Mac.
Yeah, and then think about all the ways that your food gets to you, all those choke points of failure involving underpaid employees who don't give a shit about what they're doing. Like any moment along that line, your food is at risk. That's just the game you're playing for demanding a private taxi to bring you your Big Mac,
Sure. And the cost for entry in playing that game is 2 or 3 extra exorbitant fees.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's one reason I don't use DoorDash a lot.
I think Instacart is a little bit, I see the upside of Instacart more because I kind of hate being inside of grocery stores.
I love going to the grocery store, but that's the Don DeLillo fan in me.
Invariably, there's 1 or 2 items on my list that I never remember where they are, and I end up in that stupid fucking lap that I hate taking. So I kind of do Instacart more than I DoorDash. But anyway, more than our personal. So it seems like one of the big choke points here, or one of the big sticking points anyway of the discourse around DoorDash was people getting mad that their Dasher was not bringing their food to their door, right?
Yes. And another big thing that always comes up is that you cannot be glib about people using DoorDash in any way. Otherwise, you are being highly offensive to people with disabilities.
Yes, that's right. Okay. So then maybe you're a lazy piece of shit, but you want to hide under the umbrella of people with special needs so that nobody can make fun of you.
I'm sure it happens. But let's keep things rolling. We don't have a ton of time to talk about all of these subjects individually.
Right.
Boom or doom?
I want to boom this because I think at the heart of this debate is being kinder to underpaid service employees. So I'm for it.
Boom sounds good to me. So we're going to add the DoorDash etiquette to the boom list.
Boom! Nice.
Next up, we've got another one that was a pretty hot topic for January. In fact, this is kind of a setup for a future punchline in the form of an additional bullet later on. Next up, we've got Stanley Cup overconsumption.
Right. Can you remind me, did Stanley Cups have like some sort of terrible ecological impact or toxic ingredient, or what was the thing about again?
We'll talk a little more about that later, but for now all you have to know is that for a period in January 2024, everyone was talking about how much people wanted these like reusable cups. They're these big ass tumbler cups that you can get. They come in like tons of different, every color of the rainbow you can imagine.
They got a bendy straw with a cap on it. They're that kind that you can put in the cup holder on the base, but then it gets fat and wide above that.
Sure. And people were like showing off videos of entire like walk-in closets they had just filled with every color of Stanley Cup.
Some people had the Funko Pop desk set up with it, where like, this is my Stanley Cup wall in my house.
Yeah, it was pretty bleak stuff. And I think a reason why this made so many people mad is that because, you know, ostensibly you are buying this cup to kind of reduce your waste. You know, you're not going to be drinking a lot of plastic bottled water. You're not going to be throwing out a lot of containers. You just got your one cup that you can stick to.
And that exchange makes sense when it's one Stanley Cup to replace whatever 20 bottles of water. But it doesn't make sense when you go Funko crazy over them.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm tempted to give the Stanley Cup overconsumption Twitter discourse bullet a boom because I do enjoy seeing people get angry and pissed at like, you know, people who are doing stuff like overconsumption. But maybe it's worth a doom because it was pretty annoying.
You know what? You know what this kind of smells like, though? This kind of smells like one of my least favorite kind of Twitter discourse, which is somebody posts an initial video that goes semi-viral just on the merit of, wow, look how many Stanley Cups this person has. And then a follow-up thread goes viral about, actually, that amount of Stanley Cups is a problem, and here's why. There's something about that. So, like, I don't know that I can boom this. I kind of want to doom this. It seems like an edge case that's being hyper-fixated on.
Okay. I could see it going in the doom column, and I'm fine with that because I think the follow-up Stanley Cup discourse might get a boom, and I'd like to see that happen.
Okay, sure.
All right. Next up, we've got, this one was pretty fun. A man streaks in a pool in a large Bass Pro Shop.
I guess this was just right at the new year. Is this like officially where we get brain damage for the year? and like
maybe
now we're on a trajectory to have the dumbest conversations ever.
Possibly. I don't think there's too much to say about this one. I want to give this one a boom.
I also want to give it a boom, but I do want to call out the worst thing about this one, which was that shitty cameraman who missed everything. Like his friend's like, he did a cannonball. Did you get that? He's like, yeah, I got it. But the video just like starts with the end of his splash. And then like,
yeah,
he's like, oh, he fell and hit his head. And then the dude like whips away from, I guess, just like Bass Pro Shop fucking merchandise that he was filming back to the guy with him passed out on the floor. Really dropped the ball. That could have been an all-timer clip if he had been a little bit better at it.
I do enjoy when, you know, these stories that revolve around a bigger character have little side characters in them like that. But yeah, Bass Pro Shop streaker gets the boom.
For sure. And if you've never seen the pyramid in real life, you owe it to yourself. It's something else.
Boom! Next one, we've got number 4. Comedian Joe Kay hosts the Golden Globes.
What was this? I don't remember. Who's Joe Kay again?
I didn't know who Joe Kay was when he was doing this. I have not since learned who Joe Kay is. I think he's ostensibly a comedian who is hired to host the Golden Globes.
Oh, he just bombed really hard, right? Isn't that what it was?
Yeah, everybody hated it. I feel like I remember hearing that because I didn't even watch the Golden Globes, but I remember hearing that the energy in the room was really bad. I think he even might have addressed how poorly he was doing during his, hosting duties.
I mean, I think watching a comedian bomb, and I am at least a former stand-up comedian, and I have bombed, I think it represents the best that the art form has to offer.
So are you going to give this a boom?
It's great to watch somebody absolutely fall on their face on that grand of a stage, you know?
That's true, but how great is it to watch other people talking about it?
That's a good point.
I think that's what we got to consider.
Is it just that the initial clip is good, and then does any good discourse come from it? I don't know. That's a good point.
I kind of want to give Joe K a doom just because I feel like it was almost like a you had to be there kind of thing.
Yeah, I respect it. I do think that clip of him doing badly is worth watching, though. It's very funny.
Next up, looking at this one on the list, I had no idea how to phrase it because I couldn't do so in a way that did not seem vaguely anti-Semitic. I'm talking, of course, I'm sure you remember about those New York City tunnels that were discovered back in January 2024. I think by way of, is this proper nomenclature? Some Hasidic Jews emerging from them or going into them?
Yeah,
I know they quickly became known as the New York City Jew tunnels.
That's right.
But I didn't want to write that phrase.
I mean, it's better than some of the other names I've heard for them, for sure.
I can imagine.
I believe the Wikipedia nomenclature is the New York Synagogue Tunnel Incident. So maybe that's the most neutral phrasing we could
That's a pretty good one.
It's a powerful piece of footage for sure.
This is an obvious boom for me. I don't know if we ever figured out what was really going on here. Do you remember if there was ever like a genuine answer? I remember there was something to do about like taxes and property laws or something.
Yeah, there was something about like wanting to expand the space that they had in such a way that they couldn't, and like doing it illegally or something like that. I'm Jewish, and some of my family are Hasidic Jews, and they are an unknowable mystery box of a culture. They're so like, they've completely and intentionally foreignized themselves from everyone. So it on some level, when I saw this, I was like, yeah, I mean, who knows what they're getting up to in those extremely tight-knit communities. And it's a powerful piece of footage. That dude with his little hat coming out of the hole, it's great.
One of the best pieces of footage of the year, probably. Certainly, we got to give this the boom.
We're giving it the boom. And I understand that anti-Semitism is a hot topic, but it doesn't change the fact that was just a fascinating moment.
Boom! All right, next up, something I doubt you will remember this one. Do you remember Josh Wine?
Josh Wine. You're going to have to refresh my memory on that one.
So this was a brand of wine that was briefly popular on Twitter for a few days that was just called Josh.
Oh, I've just Googled it and I see the cursive and it does look familiar that like there were some memes about this.
People would post like last night we let the Josh talk.
Right.
You know.
So it was all predicated on the fact that it's funny for a vintage to be named Josh, right?
Yeah. I don't know if this one really had the staying power to get the boom. I'd probably go with a doom on Josh Wine. I feel like we might have been a little bored that week.
It seems like it's a launch pad for a funny tweet or two. But I don't know if it's really that exciting. Let's let the Josh talk about the next thing.
The next thing is people were wondering, is the TED TV show actually good?
I can't officially weigh in on it because I have not watched the TED TV show, but there's no way that it's good, right?
I can't imagine. I remember seeing some clips. There was the famous clip about there was the kid talking to Ted the bear about like a person of color who used to go to his Boston high school. After Ted pointed out how white it was, he said that I think he said they used to have an Asian kid, but they got him. And Ted was like, what do you mean they got him?
Right.
That was the big clip that kept going around with people asking, wait, is the TED TV show actually good? My interest was not piked enough that I went to go, figure that out. I'd probably give this a doom though.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, I don't care about the TED TV show.
It is mirrors that other thing that you sometimes encounter on the internet of people telling you that American Dad is a great television show.
I can genuinely probably watch a good 45 minutes to an hour of American Dad or Family Guy as long as it is delivered to me in 15-minute clips that are taken out of context. I could just sit there and watch those for hours, it seems, but I would never put on an episode of Family Guy or American Dad or the TED TV show. Let's move on though. We've got topic number 8 for this month. This is a bit of a sad one, kind of a serious one. Pitchfork is folded into GQ.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you had any reason to give a shit about their editorial content before, certainly not anymore. I even recently had not a Pitchfork related discussion, but I was talking with a friend who was like, yeah, I don't know, my album of the year, it's probably either the Cindy Lee or the Jordy Griep album. And I just remembered in my head thinking, yeah, but Cindy Lee got the Pitchfork nod, so it can't be that good, right?
So that's where they stand for you in 2024. I still, I enjoy giving Pitchfork the old look. I was a little sad to learn that it was being folded into GQ. Only so sad because I feel like it hasn't really been Pitchfork since it was purchased by Condé Nast, right?
No, yeah, and you do now get the terrible like full screen ads on Pitchfork, all the terrible things that you don't want. I don't even know if they are they doing the infinite scroll yet, where you can just keep scrolling and you'll get like pretend.
Oh
content.
Man, like a Pitchfork For You page that would go off. I would probably spend hours on that site if they had something like that. Big thanks to the For You page on Twitter, by the way, for basically making this entire program possible, because that is pretty much how I found out or absorbed all this discourse.
If we were doing a postmortem of this show, that would potentially be a weak link, right? Because in theory, your For You page is technically on some way algorithmically pointed at your interests, right?
Yeah. I realize that there are kind of elements of that will limit the scope of this project to some degree.
But if something is big enough to make the list, then in theory, it shouldn't matter. You know what I mean?
Sure. And you got to remember, I'm such a Renaissance man. I'm into pretty much everything. I have a wide swath of knowledge about all goings on.
Good point.
So up next, we're giving Pitchfork getting folded into GQ a doom. We feel good about that?
Yeah, doom, right? Because it's a bummer story and also fuck Pitchfork on top of that. So who cares?
All right, number 9, inaccessible foyer landings.
Oh, what should I do with this space type post?
Yeah, and you had people photoshopping a number of amusing things that would
Dark Souls stuff.
Fit into like the Orlando archers from Dark Souls.
I'm always tickled by these edits. I love them.
Yeah.
They always amuse me.
Kind of is a good showcase for the wide range of creativity that Twitter users are so often capable of putting on display.
And the democratization of cutting images out of other images and pasting them into new images, which used to be, you and I are old enough to remember that just being able to do that made you like a hero on a message board back in the day.
Now it's everybody can do it. Now even AI could do something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know that I feel like I almost don't have the objectivity here just because I get excited when somebody has a new one of these so much that maybe I'm too hook, line, and sinker, but I would give it a boom.
I'll give it a boom just because I remember specifically, I think I came up with a pretty good one. I took the photo that was going around of the landing, and I edited a bunch of Stanley Cups into it.
Oh yeah, that was a good cross-pollination.
Yeah. So we'll give inaccessible foyer landings a boom. Boom. Next up, we've got here's the first one that I felt deserved a recurring notifier. The new season of True Detective does not seem to be doing it for people.
Okay, this is one of those things where the memory feels so remote to me that if you had told me it was January of last year, I would believe you.
Yeah. There was a season of True Detective this year?
Yeah. What was it season? The story was that it wasn't going to be a season of True Detective, and then it got rebranded part of the way through making it, I believe was the story. I'm looking it up here. It looks like Nick Pizzolatto, whatever his name is.
Nick Pizza.
He was working on another show called Night Country and was exec producing a new season of True Detective, and that fell through. And then Night Country became True Detective Night Country. I don't really care though about this.
I'll give this one I think this is a doom. This is an easy doom. If there's one thing I don't like watching people talk about is how much they don't like a TV show that I do not have the interest in. And
True Detective in particular has it hasn't mattered since the first year anyway. So why should it matter now that it's bad?
Yeah, seriously, why would they finally have been able to make another good season of this.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
it's a fool's errand to go into it thinking that you're going to see something good.
We doomed it. We're dooming
New
it.
season of True Detective. That gets a doom from us. Next up, this is one that kind of, I didn't give it a recurring, but I feel like it did kind of pop up in several different forms throughout maybe the winter, I'll say. It's a question. Is there a Taylor Swift for men?
I remember this vividly, first of all. And I do actually think it's a great point of discussion because there's so many branches you can take from it. I think my personal umbrella answer is that there is not a Taylor Swift for men. There's a lot of funny things you can say as an answer to that question.
Yeah, I mean, my takeaway from it was that one of the reason why Taylor Swift is so popular and so successful is that because she does for women what a lot of male artists do for men without having to kind of make the same compromises that so many very, very popular and successful female artists have to make.
Right.
So like it's not that there's a Taylor Swift for men so much as Taylor Swift feels like the first like Bob Dylan or Radiohead or something for women to a degree.
Yeah, and I also think that Taylor Swift is also certain things in the culture that just don't really happen anymore outside of like the Beatles, like that level of total parasocial devotion.
Yeah.
And I also think that this was a great launch pad to say funny things like Hideo Kojima or whatever.
Yeah, yep, definitely. So I would give this one a boom for sure.
Yeah, good discussion, some good jokes. That's the heart of a boom, if you ask me.
Next one, I may have spoken too soon when I talked about the tunnels being my favorite point of discourse because this is another very strong contender.
Okay.
It's a very strong statement that someone made. I can't remember who exactly posted this. It was one of those accounts, but they posited that the music video for Alien Ant Farm's cover of Smooth Criminal is what the world looked like before mass immigration, widespread racial and gendered guilt activism, and all that kind of stuff.
So basically, an anti-woke grifter. I'm sure that one of the accounts was passing this video around as like a, oh God, remember when?
This video has popped up time and time again for me this year on my For You page, always coming from a different source. I think we should just talk about it very briefly, not only just to give context, but just celebrate it for what it is. Because you don't get things like this anymore.
Yeah, no, it was a TRL mainstay, Total Request Live on MTV. It's backyard wrestling themed.
It's a lot of people who fall into like the I've since seen described as like the Malcolm in the Middle genre of white people.
Sure. And I mean, also just if you hung out in malls in smaller towns in America at the turn of the 2000s, you knew all these guys.
Yep. Yeah.
And they're doing a pretty fun new metalized cover of Michael Jackson's Smooth Criminal.
I think the consensus on the cover is that they did not need to go as hard as they did on it. But
sure. It's maybe even a little bit more repetitive than the original, which is a pretty repetitive song to begin with, but it's got a pretty agreeable groove and energy to it. And they're doing lots of Michael Jackson music video references throughout, but all centered around this kind of white trash backyard wrestling motif of weirdos and outcasts, right?
And there are a lot of little weird urban legends about this video too. Like, I'm not sure if you're aware, but one thing that gets passed around a lot is that there is like a little boy in this video who wears like a face mask and does some Michael Jackson dance moves.
That's right.
People love to spread the rumor that that little boy grew up to be the lead singer from the band Imagine Dragons.
Weird. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about the video that I don't think I've ever seen anybody mention is that for the first like half of the video, the way that it's staged, you can never see the drummer's face. And I always think like, oh, this is going to be one of those A&R created band issues where your drummer is like a 55-year-old session guy, you know?
Yeah.
And then they finally do show his face, and he is older than the other guys, but I don't think he was older enough to have been hidden for that long in the video, personally.
Sure. It also seems like the kind of band where like the drummer could be like the bass player's uncle or something.
Yeah, like a pre-LMFAO situation of...
Yeah.
Because the thing about this kind of guy, this turn of the millennium, proto-juggalo kind of guy, is that there were always much older guys hanging out with these 18-year-olds, always part of the thing.
Truly, though, the crux of this one is that, it doesn't, nothing is better about this than the fact that this was being held up by like a return account as like, this is what we need to go back to.
God, I saw a different socio-political take on that video a couple of days ago that had me screaming. I was so happy with it.
Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, it was like, this was part of the MTV Generation's PSYOP push to get young men to drop out of high school so that they could be funneled into the military for the upcoming War on Terror.
This song does have very big military war on terror vibes for some reason. Does. I don't know what it is about it, but I see it.
What this anti-wokeist is reacting to, they're reacting insanely to a real thing, which is like, this is a piece of Americana that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair assessment. Yeah, you don't see this stuff anymore.
Major boom, though. We got to give it the boom.
Maybe the boom of the month for me. If it's not the tunnels, it's this one.
Could be. Boom.
Moving on, though. This got a lot of talk. Margot Robbie was not nominated for the Best Actress Oscar for her role in Barbie.
Okay. Yeah, I remember. There was a lot of talk, and it wasn't just Twitter talk. It was talk in like real media spaces, news spaces, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and there were some real brain dead takes about this too, because it was like, she would have been nominated for the Best Actress Oscar for Barbie if she was a man. They're just doing it because she's a woman.
Whole undercurrent of it was misogynist to not nominate her in a category full of like a very intersectional amount of other female actresses.
Because then you got a whole wave of backlash where people were doing gotcha moments like, well, which woman would you take the nomination away from to give it to, Margot?
It's horrible discourse. First of all, the Barbie movie earned its nominations that it got, production design and writing, and I suppose also what's-his-face getting the supporting nod. So it was definitely a well-recognized film. A studio comedy based on the Barbie IP got several Oscar nominations. Yeah, I don't know. This seems like discourse designed to fatigue me,
Yeah, and as a result, I'll give this one a doom.
Yeah, big time.
Moving on, this was talked about for a few days. Is it safe to reheat rice?
Oh, right. My wife would tell you absolutely not.
Interesting.
Apparently, the actual safest way to do it, which is huge in like at least Asian American families, probably, and also just Native Asian families, is to make your rice in your rice cooker and just keep it on warm for as long as it takes you to use it.
Sure. By the way, we should say your wife has like a medical background. She's not just like super opinionated about rice.
It's true. Yeah. She's not like a food psycho, but yeah, apparently it grows that bacteria that can really make you sick. Same with like eggs and egg-based products and stuff like that. You got to be real careful about that shit.
I heat up rice all the time, and I'm not going to stop doing it just because some people on Twitter said it was not safe. I'm going to give this one, honestly, a doom because I feel like I didn't come away from it with a definitive answer either way.
I don't feel particularly enlightened or engaged by it. I'm fine with a doom.
Next up, bit of a not safe for work one here. The White House had to look into some AI-generated Taylor Swift content.
Oh, right. So did somebody just put her head on some porno or something?
No, it was some like, I didn't see it, but from what I hear, it was some very realistic, just like digital, artwork of some very explicit things being done to her at a Chiefs football game. Like I said, I didn't see it. I just heard about it.
What you're supposed to take from this is that some people were going like, "Did you see? I can't believe she did that at that Chiefs football game."
Yeah. Your oldest boomer uncle messaging it to you like, "This Taylor Swift is out of control.
I can't believe our young women are looking up to this trollop."
Yeah, yeah. But I think really the headline here is that the White House was looking into it.
Right. Well, I mean, look, if I could pull a lever and uncreate AI writ large, I would. So I guess I'm okay with the idea of any stupid thing being the thing that causes our, practically cadaver of a president to look into it. Sure. Didn't he also get nervous about AI because he watched the newest Mission Impossible movie?
Was that Biden or was that Trump? I can't remember. I remember that
Biden.
there was some. Yeah. I mean, hey, AI does some scary stuff in that movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, just think about how stupid your boomer uncle is right now. That's going to be you in 5 years when it gets sophisticated enough. And intelligent enough bad actors are using it to try to fool you for sure.
I saw way too many arguments about AI this year, though. I am a staunchly anti-AI guy. And just, it's been so wearying. I got to give this one a doom, probably.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm more just so viscerally disgusted by the look of all AI generated images. There's something. It looks like I'm looking at somebody's brain split open or something. I hate it.
Moving on, we got to talk about something that does look good, though. I'm talking about the music video for "Virtual Insanity" by Jamiroquai. Because for about a week, Twitter was very fascinated by the fact that Jonathan Glazer, director of The Zone of Interest, which came out at the end of last year, beginning of this year, directed this music video for Virtual Insanity by Jamiroquai, which features Jamiroquai moving around a room that is also moving.
Well, let me tell you something. Way back in the year of 1997, when this music video came out, I had my first family personal computer. And I went to Jamiroquai.com to download the real video file of this music video. And I'm sure 120p resolution.
Yeah. Is that a format that even exists anymore?
No,
a real video file? I feel like the state of California has been trying to get me to get one of those for the last 6 years. I'm talking about the Real ID thing, which is a very obscure joke, but proceed.
I followed it. I enjoyed it.
Okay.
But also the reason I remember this was that my dad became convinced that it was a virus, and I got in trouble for it.
Nice.
And his computer did have a virus, but let me tell you, listener, it did not come from Jamiroquai.com.
Hey, Jamiroquai's music might as well be a virus, considering how catchy and unshakable it is, right?
I loved that song and that video when I was 9, and I still love the song and video. So I'm glad that people were talking about it.
I was unfamiliar with the video. I don't think I'd really heard any of Jamiroquai's music beforehand. But it was cool to see the video, and I like that the Zone of Interest director directing a music video like that was enough to just get people going hey, did you know that guy directed that thing? For a couple of days. So I'm going to give this one a boom.
And I think it became viral because the song's a bop and the video's fun to look at, right?
It's a great video, so I think we'll give this one a boom.
Also, don't Google the lyrics because they're so stupid. They're so droolingly stupid that you'll like the song less if you Google the lyrics.
Boom! Moving on, something that also might leave you drooling and stupid. We've got to talk about Sydney Sweeney going on Hot Ones.
Okay, so this is the beginning of the year's worth of Sydney Sweeney horny people content, right?
The beginning of Sydney Sweeney's utter dominance of Twitter discourse going forward.
She is the it girl, and she's the biggest it girl we've had in I don't know how long since we've had an it girl on this level. And I mean, sometimes you get an it girl who the it's based around how great she is at acting. I remember for a while Jennifer Lawrence was America's sweetheart, but this is your Marilyn Monroe thing, right? Just a total object of inversion of gaze. Everybody is just posting, talking about how horny they are about her. Her Instagram stories become, but this is what comes from this Hot Ones that is so important.
It was the meme of her kind of looking slightly up lovingly. Or just in awe of something. I think she might have been reminiscing about something in the actual interview itself, but it looked like she was looking at something. So people would make image posts where there would be something in a top left-hand corner that they loved, and in the bottom right-hand corner, you would have Sydney Sweeney kind of looking up at it adoringly. You remember that?
I don't know if I can boom it. Do you think that we're going to have enough opportunities to boom other Sydney Sweeney things as we go? Or
I think there are multiple Sydney Sweeney points of interest coming down the pipe that are kind of a little more illustrative of the kind of fascination that you were just touching on. So I'm fine with giving Sydney Sweeney's on Hot Ones a doom if you want to.
Because I Googled the thumbnail and I do recognize the image, but I don't think it's the thing that's bubbled up, for example, throughout the year as much.
All right, so Sydney Sweeney on Hot Ones, that's getting a doom.
I wonder if any other Hot Ones are going to get booms this year. That'd be interesting.
I can't remember if any other ones made the list. There are a couple that definitely had potential I can think of off the top of my head, but we'll get to them. Up next, do you remember the Nicki Minaj Megan Thee Stallion diss track?
Yeah, I remember this. This one feels like so overshadowed by the year of the biggest hip hop feud in like decades.
This one is an obvious doom for me. Probably. I could see it getting to a boom just because of how comedically bad it was. But what you had was basically just Nicki Minaj delivering the probably weakest bars of her career over an extremely flat and tepid trap beat. I think the artwork for the single was a terrible AI image. So just real failure on all fronts when it comes to Nicki Minaj trying to dunk on Megan Thee Stallion here. I don't even really know what the beef was between the two of them, other than that they are both like, two female rappers, and I can't imagine there's a lot of room for two of those things to exist within the same kind of space.
It's probably just one of those, like, one person had one bar about the other, so then the next song, the other person had two bars about the other, and eventually it turned into a whole thing, right? Can I just say, I don't think Nicki Minaj did anything else this year that was discourse worthy. So I just want to say something that I thought of recently, Trevor, that I believe that Nicki Minaj is the Nintendo 64, the hardware of the hip hop world.
Okay.
Because the Nintendo 64 was built in this really counterintuitive way to make it so that it could output an incredible peak amount of performance if it's running as hard as it possibly can.
Yep.
And therefore it's always running poorly other times because it's not optimized, right? Mm-hmm. And I think this is Nicki Minaj completely capable of transcendence and genius and just can't get her shit together 99% of the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. And also I feel like she kind of was like, opened the door for future consoles of its sort to like just do what she does better, maybe?
Yeah, she stumbled so that Megan Thee Stallion could twerk. I don't know.
Yeah. You're so wise. I'll give this one a doom.
Doom, yeah.
Okay, up next, we have to circle back to Stanley Cups because a few weeks after everybody spent those weeks talking about Stanley Cup overconsumption, we had a question break. Will Stanley Cups give you lead poisoning?
It's amazing when like the spheres, the gods who move the fates, do a setup and a punchline like this. It's great.
Within the same month too. It was very, very convenient, very efficient. I think what people found was that there are like trace amounts of lead used in the sealing process that kind of winds up putting the Stanley Cup together. And from what I gathered, it should be safe to drink out of one of those things unless they have been like seriously structurally compromised. Like if you ran over it with a car or something.
If you're like a messy bitch, like you're an IRL super adorable Manic Pixie Dream Girl, and part of your brand is that your Stanley Cup's all dented up, maybe consider dropping that and finding some other quirk, right?
Yeah. But I think the real reason why this was such a big point of discourse was that like this is one of those examples of people not really caring about facts, people not really caring about the nuances of the issue. They just loved to take all these people who were showing off their closet full of Stanley Cups and say, you clearly have lead poisoning, dude.
It's delicious.
You are getting lead poisoning.
Can you blame them?
No,
I mean,
absolutely
what a
not.
joy.
Yeah.
What an exciting slam dunk to make.
Obviously, this one's going in the boom column.
Yeah, you can't spit on something like this so serendipitous happening to make us all giggle and not give it the boom.
Boom! Next up, we've got the A24 Stop Making Sense cover album.
I barely even remember this as a thing, dude, and I love all things Talking Heads, all things stop making sense. I barely remember this existing.
So A24, the film distribution company, kind of within the past year has been doing this big remaster re-release push for the Talking Heads concert album, Stop Making Sense, the concert movie, really. And as part of that, they got a bunch of artists to record covers of Talking Heads songs. I remember the first one was Paramore doing Burning Down the House. And that was, even with just that first one, nobody could really agree on whether this was good or if this was bad. I think most of the stuff I wound up hearing from this record did sound pretty bad. I thought the Paramore one was pretty fine.
I see Bad, Bad, Not Good is on the This Must Be the Place cover with Nora Jones. Yeah, I don't know. I even remembering that this exists now, I have no interest in like visiting it.
I think we could give this one a doom. The one thing that I do find amusing is thinking about how there must be a guy out there who is introduced to Talking Heads via A24 and like sees A24 as instrumental in like, kind of introducing them to that facet of culture.
And probably also owns and wears A24 merchandise.
Yeah. So I like thinking about that guy, maybe not enough to give this a boom. So we'll go with a doom for this one. Doom! Next up, we've only got a couple more items on the list for January. So far, this one, I have to kind of maybe admit that this entry might suffer from my like kind of lack of attention paid to it. Number 21, just the phrase "small big bird."
Small Big Bird.
Yeah, so Big Bird from Sesame Street. I think for a week or so back in January, he was small.
Oh, right. Like the official account was posting content of edits of Big Bird being like regular bird sized, or
I think that's what was going on. I'm going to give this one a doom just on like, I don't remember.
Yeah, why did this gain traction and who cares? I don't know.
Clearly people are talking about it enough for it to make the list, but I can't remember it. We're going to give a doom to Small Big Bird. There will be future Sesame Street themed topics that I do think will fare better, but yeah, that one gets a doom for now. Doom! Next up, we've got some this one, again, going forward, I might not have included this in the list just because I can't imagine this escaped its bubble, but I do remember seeing a lot of posts about this. Negative reactions to the Suicide Squad video game.
Okay, yeah, I remember this being a thing. I don't know that it's so I'm already in Boomer Doom territory. I don't know the fact that it was a failed, live subscription service game that disappointed people makes it unique enough to get any kind of a boom. Just because that shit was happening constantly all year and has been for several years.
Yeah.
I guess the point being that like people like those Arkham games, and maybe this was going to be good because it's made by the same people. But I don't care. Who cares?
Yeah, I'm going to give this one a doom. I hate seeing gamers complain about things. So that's
get over it. Go find an old game you like and play it. Who gives a shit?
You're acting like you deserve rights. You don't. That one gets a doom. Next up, this one was fun. The Argyle movies twist is spoiled by a years-old tweet.
Oh, right. Okay. So then is the twist that the cat is a person? I don't remember what it is.
The twist is that the author in the movie was actually a secret agent with amnesia.
Okay. Wow, what a twist. I'm excited.
Yeah, apparently that was very forefronted in back in 2020. There were these reports coming out like the guy who made Kingsman is going to make a secret agent movie starring a character who's a writer who writes secret agent stories, but they have amnesia and they're a secret agent. But the marketing for Argyle was built up around who is the real Agent Argyle? Don't let anybody know if you know.
I think the marketing for Argyle was built around having maybe the worst trailer ever in history.
You're not wrong. But yeah, 3 days before the movie came out, people started sharing screenshots of that article back from 2020 or whatever and completely let the air out of that whole thing. Which, saved me from having to go see it.
Yeah, did it? Would you have? I don't feel that any sane person.
I had a theory about who Agent Argyle was going to be that felt so outside the box, but still within the realm of possibility, that I thought that if I went to the theater and it turned out to be right, I would get such a buzz that like I'd never be able to match it, you know? So I was fully intending.
So that was going to get you that was going to get your 1050.
Yes, I was going to go. I was going to sit through the movie. I was going to be undoubtedly disappointed when my prediction did not turn out to be true. And my prediction was wrong. I did not think that was going to be the twist.
Can you share it with us today, or is it a little too private?
I'll say it, okay? I'll say it. There has been a little bit of a trend lately of movies pulling this move, right? Where they will cast some big actor that you're really excited to see in a role that makes sense for them to be in, only to, immediately and unceremoniously kill that character in a like comedically gruesome way.
Sure. Okay. I remember a recent version of this was Carrie-Anne Moss as the flagship actress for The Acolyte and then dying in the first episode.
Okay. I was thinking about, there was that rom-com. It was called The Lost City of D, I think. It came out like 2 or 3 years ago. The main female character is kidnapped. She has to be rescued, I think, by who's the Magic Mike actor? Channing Tatum. She has to be rescued by Channing Tatum. But when Channing Tatum arrives, some like secret agent commando dude shows up to rescue her, played by Brad Pitt.
Oh, okay.
And like it's like Brad Pitt is here to save the day. But then I think he's like immediately decapitated by a helicopter blade or something.
Right. Okay, yeah.
So I thought they were going to do something like that. And I thought the one actor who made sense to portray this secret agent character that they were really building up and who I could see showing up for like a day's worth of shooting to do a kind of joke like this would be none other than the current James Bond himself, Daniel Craig.
Okay, yeah.
I thought Daniel Craig was going to show up for like a minute and then they were going to like blow him up or something and he would splatter all over the camera.
Sure. Totally.
Fortunately, I did that was not the case. And thanks to this tweet, I did not have to go wait 2 hours in a theater to see that not happen.
But does that give it a boom?
I think so. I just think the concept of them building this marketing campaign around this huge secret, when the trades had leaked that secret 3 years earlier, and then somebody found it and dropped it like with 2 days before the movie came out. I think that's boom worthy.
I think it's boom worthy. I'll say in my own personal annals, this is a marginal boom at best, though. I'm not full double chunk chocolate cookie booming this thing.
Gotcha. Maybe just stay like, I don't know, what is a mid item you would get from Costco that is still kind of useful, like a 40 pack of toilet paper or something?
Sure. Yeah. Definitely.
Boom. Here's one that I remember specifically. I forgot to include this on the list. I think we're kind of the best topics of January are behind us now. We've kind of got some runoff here at the end, maybe with 1 or 2 exceptions. But do you remember when Travis Barker tore his hand up during a Blink-182 concert?
Oh yeah, sure, of course, yeah.
He posted the photo and it was all bloody. I didn't put this one on the list just because I didn't feel like there was real discourse around this, but like when I posted the list at the end of the month, which I have been doing on my Twitter, and asked like, did I miss anything? Multiple people said, what about the Travis Barker photo where his hand is all bloody? So I added it on the list. Yeah.
Sure. I can't boom it, but I mean, hey, guy, I hope you healed in the intervening 12 months.
I'm sure he's doing fine. He survived a plane crash, right? I think he can probably survive getting his hand scraped up a little bit.
Do you think, was it Mark or Tom who had cancer? Which one had cancer?
That was Mark.
You think Mark was looking at that discourse being like, oh yeah, poor guy with his hand?
Yeah, probably.
I was going to fucking die.
Yeah, Tom probably too busy, communing with aliens to even know that it was being posted. Next up, another one. I feel like this one would not make the list in the current day and age just because I can't imagine this one escaping its bubble. But I do remember a lot of people talking about the Death Stranding 2 State of Play trailer.
Yeah, who knows? Buddy.
Yeah.
Was that where it was announced formally? Maybe that's why they were excited?
I think so. I think it was the first time we saw a lot of the images from it, like Leia Seydoux smoking a cigarette with like the sentient gloves.
And I feel like it does help kickstart a recurring piece of discourse this year, which is about if you're a beautiful actress, Hideo Kojima will scan you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Or like if you're a striking woman in the public eye, Hideo Kojima is going to scan you.
But I don't know if that's enough to get it a boom for me. I'm probably going to go with Doom on this one.
Yeah, I'll doom that too because it's just who cares? A video game got announced, whatever.
Next one, pretty good though. Do you remember when everyone spent a week trauma dumping on Elmo?
Yeah, because like he had some kind of an open-ended "How is everybody?" post or whatever.
Yeah. The official Elmo account, not the last we'll see of Elmo, by the way, on this series, but the official Elmo account made some kind of post asking people how they were, and people were not good, and they let Elmo know. I'll give this one a boom, just because I'm amused by the concept of just like, ostensibly adults kind of sharing their grief or trauma or whatever they're going through with this, a fictional puppets Twitter account.
It's funny because in January of an election year, I do have a certain internal tension of like, oh, people are going to be so insufferable this year,
Yeah.
But it's almost like it hasn't really kicked in yet. And, I don't know when we're going to pop our cherry, sorry for using that turn of phrase, on the first like election adjacent piece of discourse.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be interested to see what month that finally comes out. But once it does, year's fucked as far as I'm concerned.
Boom! Definitely going to take over the list at some point. Fortunately, not yet. Next, we've still got, this was a video that went around. I'm not sure if you remember, but it featured a Swiftie who could guess any Taylor Swift song in 1 second. And I think what this video was a friend of this girl's just kind of flipping through her phone, playing the first second of every Taylor Swift song. And she would go like, Love Story, Style, Lover. And just over and over again.
Yeah, and I remember there were parodies that were kind of funny too. I remember seeing some people doing setup ones for dumb stuff that was kind of funny.
What do you think though? Boom or doom on this one?
I don't think it gets the boom. It seems a little too slight to me.
If this was a fan of any other artist, you got to imagine that this would probably have just like came and went. But since it's like, Taylor Swift fans have such a reputation for being so derangedly obsessed about her. Like there are plenty of like, if you played me like the first second of any Beatles song, yeah, I could probably guess that.
Maybe some of the pre-1964 stuff would be tricky because a lot of those start identically.
But this isn't exactly like the most difficult thing to do for a musical act that you are a fan of. But if it's a Swiftie doing it, they're going to get a little extra.
Yeah, and I think you're also going to get, I have a chance to post my hot takes about Taylor Swift and the Swiftie thing that's going to carry it also. Yeah, I'll doom it. It just doesn't seem like it moves the needle enough to me.
All right, so we're down to the last point of discourse for the month, January 2024.
You might be thinking, they're going to finish strong, but that's not how this works.
No, this just happens to be the last thing that people are really talking about this month.
That's right.
And, it is something that kind of popped back up because I did give it a recurring bracket.
Okay.
Fans of Avatar: The Last Airbender, they disapproved of some of the upcoming Netflix adaptation's creative decisions.
Okay, yeah. I remember this was a big piece of media talking point at a certain for a chunk of time.
The Avatar: The Last Airbender fan has always kind of seemed a little unique to me when it comes to like other adult fans of animated programs.
Yeah, they're definitely ride or die for sure.
I feel like a lot of it stems from them being into Avatar at an age where it probably would have been a little more appropriate, like, young teens to teens. I could see, like, if I were like 13 to 15 or something, and I'd gotten really into Avatar back then when it was like really going on, I could see like really getting into it because it was, all things considered, a pretty well-made, like ambitious bit of like, young adult animation that you didn't really see a lot of like coming out stateside back then.
Yeah, it's a thing that maybe when you were a kid it was awesome, and then you go back as an adult, still awesome, still like it, so you've deepened your connection or whatever.
But there are people who care so deeply about Avatar that I just get the impression that like in the 10, 15 years or however many that have passed since it was big and since they got into it, really nothing else has come along for them.
Harry Potter style.
Exactly. Harry Potter is a good analog. So I have a lot of, I guess, pity for these people because it seems like the last time they were truly happy was when they were teenagers. And the only thing that could really reliably make them happy again would be a very well handled adaptation of the show that they loved in their youth. And it didn't seem like Netflix was really primed to deliver something like that, you know, based on their previous anime adaptations. And I don't, Avatar isn't necessarily an anime, but based on like, you know, the Cowboy Bebop adaptation they did, I wouldn't really go into it expecting them to be able to deliver the kind of results these fans clearly wanted.
No.
I'm sure it was better than that M. Night Shyamalan movie, right?
I'm sure it was at least a cut above that. Yeah. I mean, I've heard like more neutral parties say that it was fine. It just, it's so not the kind of content that I would ever be interested in. Something that's interesting though, as you describe the kind of psychological profile of the Avatar, The Last Airbender superfan, is when you look at the anime. Now I realize this was Western animation kind of trying to do anime. But when you look at the anime series that are kind of held up as the greatest of all time, so I'm thinking of your Death Notes is one of them. I'm thinking of Evangelion as one of them. I'm thinking of Attack on Titan as one of them. I don't think their fan bases have asserted themselves in anything like this way.
Like, what do you mean by that?
I just don't think that the people who love and hold up those shows seem as like as deeply I have integrated this into this is my personality as the Avatar: The Last Airbender fandom has.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's an accurate read. I wonder how much of that is due to you know, people who get into those other genuine anime series kind of being a larger fan of anime at large and thus getting a new one to kind of get into every now and then. Whereas like Avatar fans, like I said, it kind of seems like that was it for them.
That was it for them. Yeah. So it's like if you're a Potterhead versus you're a person who reads books.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good way to put it, I think. I'll give this one a doom though, just because like, man, I hate listening to Avatar fans complain about how whatever adaptation that wasn't going to be good in the first place turns out not to be good.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a Doom 2, and I think another Doom 2, great game. I do think another reason why it gets the Doom is that the piece of media involved feels already completely memory hold to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if they're going to continue with that series, if we're getting future seasons. I doubt it, but I guess, you know, that's the future.
That's for a future discourse dude to deal with.
And that was January 2024. We did it. Those were the 28 different topics of discourse that I documented the people on Twitter talking about that month.
Okay, pretty doable. Not too hard. Went down easy, I thought.
We have almost an equal amount of things in the Doom and Boom columns. We have a little more in the Doom column than the Boom column, so maybe that tells you like how productive the conversation was throughout the month.
When you look at the Doom column, I have two questions for you. What was the biggest piece of discourse on that Doom column? Like the thing that took over the discourse the most in that Doom column? And separate, if you could become an autocrat and grab one thing from that Doom column and put it in the Boom, what would you pick?
Well, I feel like Stanley Cup overconsumption, probably the biggest one that, you know, pervaded the month. So that's my answer for that one.
I would have said Margot Robbie because I feel like people were just droning on and on about that.
Yeah, that's a good pick. If I could move one to the Boom column, you know, fuck it. I'm going to say Josh Wine.
Josh Wine, take it. I would have taken Joe K because I like watching that guy bomb.
Well, that was our Booms and Dooms for January 2024. And you know, I don't know if there's anything else to say here at the end of this program other than that we'll hopefully meet you back here whenever the next one of these comes out to talk about the discourse from February 2024. But until next time, I'll just say that I've been Trevor.
I've been Dylan.
And discourse is over. We'll see you for the next one.
We're discourse dudes. Of course we have to crawl through secret tunnels in our underground lair.
Awesome. If you could prepare one of those for the end of every show, I think that would be helpful.
Sure.